Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Brightline West, the proposed high-speed rail project between Las Vegas and Rancho Cucamonga, held a groundbreaking ceremony on the outskirts of Vegas earlier this year. Yay! We even heard Senator Jackie Rosen give us what sounded like confirmation of a done deal.
And after years of promises and years of lip service, we finally have all the funding needed, all the approvals, all the permits, all the union workers, and there's only one thing left to do now to get this party started. We need to build it, and that starts today.
But today on CityCast Las Vegas, we're exploring the possibility that Brightline West might not be ready to hit the rails, and that there may be some major safety red flags. We've got reporting and research from my co-host, Dayvid Figler, so let's dig in. It's Monday, July 29th. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. All right, David, is Senator Rosen right? Is all the funding in place to make Brightline happen?
Ooh, short answer, no. So we reached out to Senator Rosen's office, and with some back and forth from her staff, we were able to nail it down. And it seems as though the senator was not referring to all the funding when she said all the funding. She was referring to the public financing part of it, because there were some very high-profile grants and bonding that were afforded to the Brightline West company to build this passenger train. And they still have a lot of private funding that they need to secure. So we reached out and asked, do they have the private funding secured, Senator Rosen's office? And they referred us to Brightline. So that was not a confirmation. And then we reached out to Brightline repeatedly, and Brightline did not respond back to us. We scoured every possible source that we could find to see where there might be mention of private funding being in place. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars remaining to finish this project.
So it's public funding in place, correct?
Correct. A package of public funding.
Okay, so how much funding is in place and how much funding from private funders still needs to happen?
So about half. It's kind of last estimated to be a $12 billion project, give or take. Those numbers change. They usually go up, not down. And they secured about half of the funding, generally speaking, from public financing. And then the other half has to come from private investment. And we just couldn't find any proof that any of that private funding had been secured yet.
So they're at least halfway there, if we're glass half filling, right? I mean,
Sure.
Okay, David, I feel like a lot of our listeners haven't been following this story as closely as we have, but I know also a lot of the longtime Vegas residents, oh my God, they've seen this plan come and go, right? So what is a little bit of the history of this rail project connecting Vegas and LA, and how did Brightline West end up with this contract?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sarah. I mean, there's been talk of a high-speed rail or a bullet train or something like that for decades and decades and decades. I mean, Las Vegas used to be on a passenger train service line with Amtrak.
Yeah.
And it was called the Desert Wind.
I can't believe there's not an Amtrak stop here.
Yeah, well, they stopped that service about 1997.
I hate it.
Yeah. So in around 2015, the legislature created the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority, and they were basically charged with finding a company, awarding a franchise, if you will, to some company that could build this mythical rail line. And they held some hearings. Only one of the applicants actually qualified by the parameters that were set forth in the statute and charged to this authority. So it was kind of a little controversial at the time because there were 4 competitors, but 3 of them were like, this whole process is unfair. Only one could qualify, and that one was selected, and that company was called Express West. Fast forward to 2018, the project known as Express West was acquired by a group called Fortress Investment Group, which is Brightline in Florida, which runs a higher speed rail, a faster service in the Florida area. They're actually the only privately run intercity rail route in the United States. So that company took over. Now we forward to January 2022. The Federal Transportation Department's Federal Rail Administration began reviewing a segment that was proposed between Las Vegas and Southern California. That would allow speeds up to 180 miles per hour. You know, it's touted as a Las Vegas to Los Angeles high-speed rail. It's a Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga high-speed rail, and then regular public transit into LA. In December 2023, this big public money grant came to Brightline, which gave them a lot of confidence that they were going to be able to move forward. January 2024, some more money came their way from public funding. And then April 22nd, 2024 is when Senator Rosen and others, including Governor Lombardo and, a whole cadre of politicians and public officials, were at a groundbreaking ceremony at the planned Las Vegas station site. And that's kind of the last big thing. And then different things have been happening since.
Okay, so these trains are going fast, 180 miles an hour. We don't have any high-speed rails in America yet. I'm actually curious.
Not at that level.
Yeah, not at that level. Okay. And will go really fast through often really challenging climate conditions. So you recently interviewed UNLV engineering professor Harry Tang, who sits on the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority.
Yes, from the beginning.
What concerns did he have from an engineering and design perspective about the Brightline project?
Yeah, my talk with Professor Tang was very eye-opening. The first thing he said that caught my attention was that legally, to his understanding, the groundbreaking shouldn't have even occurred when it did, because they didn't have all their financing in place. And that would be an important measure before you're actually ceremonially even breaking the ground and, creating these sort of illusions of how far along the project is. But, as an engineer, he also had a lot of concerns. Look, this is a new sort of technology to America. We don't have this level of high-speed rail. And so he had a lot of concerns about just the mechanics of it all, because it is going through not just a climate challenged area, but a geographically challenged area. I mean, there'd be straightaways, there'd be twists and turns. Again, as anyone who's made this travel knows, there's mountains in between us and them, right? And so the soil sample type of field work that's being done to see where the tracks can be laid from a technical standpoint, that's all now just happening. And the results of that aren't in. I mean, the only thing that really has been done is an environmental impact about a proposed route. But the mechanics of the actual route, that's still in process to see not just where it could be done best and potentially safest, but if it can be done on some level at all, and that was an easy transition for Professor Tang into his very big umbrella safety concerns. So
let's talk safety. Okay, this is a story that didn't make many waves in the Vegas press, but Brightline does operate trains in Florida, and there were 2 crashes. This is key because the Brightline in Florida is often cited as proof of the concept for Brightline West, what this project would be, right? The 2 crashes that happened in Florida caused 3 deaths, and the whole thing is currently under investigation. So what safety concerns haven't been raised publicly about Brightline amidst all the glowy optimism?
Well, just generally speaking. So let's break it down just to Brightline, first of all. And to that end, there's some interesting statistics that are out there. You mentioned these 3 recent deaths at the same intersection.
In January.
And Florida Today reports that since 2017, at least 370 people in Florida have been killed by trains belonging to a bunch of different companies. But of that, 97 were killed by Brightline trains. Now, let's get real here. Most of those are from bad driver conduct and suicides and things of that nature. And Brightline has not been found to be responsible per se for any of the deaths. In other words, it wasn't like a malfunction of the currently existing system. It didn't derail like we saw in East Palestine, Ohio, that created such that horrible mess. So there is kind of like a conversation, at least in Florida, around Brightline and what they're actively doing to prevent these type of things from happening. And some discussion in their local media about how, we shouldn't be having Brightline fix things after the fact to make it more safe, to mitigate these type of accidents that are occurring, but that it should have been at the front end.
Are there specific safety concerns for this route from Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga?
Yeah, and Professor Tang talked about that in a very umbrella way, that this is the first true high-speed rail line in the United States, and that Brightline hasn't done this before, and that there are complications. And according to Professor Tang, there is no existing technology that can solve a lot of the problems that are associated in building or operating high-speed rail in this segment of the country. And, he just had a general concern that despite its grand name, the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority does not have any authority over some of these safety issues. They can't implement these safety regulations from the start. They're not looking to see for violations, and they're not involved in corrections. That's not their job. Essentially, their job was to pick the franchisee and to help them get the necessary permits and things, not to make sure that they're operating the safest, most efficient rail system. That was his concern.
So speaking of oversight, who does oversee Brightline then? Who is their watchdog?
That's such a great question, and it's very, very ambiguous. There's the National Transportation Safety Board. They do investigate accidents. They're investigating the accidents involved in Florida. That's kind of after the fact. There are certain regulations, generally speaking, but again, this is something new. This isn't regular Amtrak passenger rail service. This isn't commercial trains, which have their own problems, which have been, greatly reported. I highly recommend the John Oliver segment on commercial train issues in this country.
Do you think we could get him on the pod? We shout him out a lot.
Yeah, let's get John Oliver on the pod.
If you're listening, we'd love to have you.
Right? So, yeah, this is a really big concern. Who's watching it? It doesn't really look like there's any Nevada agency directly involved in high-speed rail that's running through our state.
And of course, we're talking about two states working together here. Okay, but even if this hasn't been done before, there's always got to be a first. And I think that I'm very pro-train. I would love a high-speed rail. I would love not to make that drive, right? But what are some of the specific issues of a train from here to L.A.? I assume it's going to be running along 15 to L.A., right?
Yeah, that's what's being discussed. And, that's traffic adjacent. Look, whenever you're talking about rail, especially high-speed rail, there's going to be concerns about derailment. And when you have concerns about derailment, you have concerns about all sorts of things. The temperature of the wheels and how the wheels are landing and what the curves are like. And, all the normal common sense things about how trains work and how we detect flaws in trains before they cause accidents. And then there's the interaction with us humans that aren't trains, right? With our cars, with our walkers, with people. People are generally unsafe.
We're unsafe creatures.
We're unsafe creatures.
Wildly.
We take risks. And again, a lot of those deaths in Florida were because of human user errors and not the train. But what can the train company do to be more proactive in preventing those type of things to happen isn't being discussed. So there's a lot of technical stuff, there's a lot of environmental stuff, and then there's just the sort of how do we prevent the sort of mishaps that we're seeing in Florida from happening out here in Nevada and California.
Speaking of, didn't Lombardo veto a rail safety bill last year?
Yeah, that's a little tricky too. So we also reached out to Jason Doring. Jason Doring is another member of the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority. He's a union guy. He's worked on railroads. He lives in our state, and he is, a representative on this commission. Here's what he said to us in an email. I must admit, I am looking forward to having these questions answered as much as you are. Safety, as you rightly note, is my chief concern in a state where the current governor has a penchant for vetoing crucial rail safety legislation. Ooh. The last thing we need is another self-regulated rail operator like freight railroads do. And I think that this bill, AB 456, which Governor Lombardo did in fact veto, was there to address the sort of mishaps that we are seeing nationally with freight railroads. But, railroads are railroads, and the same kind of concerns are there. And if you look at AB 456, it really did call for very specific safety measures. What sort of the automated safety monitors, which are called train defect detectors, do, what they're looking for, and then protocols about when a defect is determined to exist or possibly exist and how that inspection should go. And all that was really spelled out in great detail by this bill in the legislature that passed the legislature. But Joe Lombardo sided with the corporate freight train operators, the Union Pacific Railroad in specific, in arguing that there might be some litigation challenges to this about the Commerce Clause. It was all very convoluted, but the bottom line is that these sort of safety measures, which theoretically could impact passenger rail as well, was not a priority in our state.
Seems crazy to me. I was actually on a train that got stopped because one of the on-track detectors went off, that it said the train was dragging something. And it wasn't a big deal. The train stopped. We were in an ice storm. I was up in the Pacific Northwest in January. They came on the announcement and said, we're stopped. This is why it's probably ice. They looked at it. They found a piece of the undercarriage of the train was dragging. They fixed it. We were on our way in 10 minutes. And no longer dragging a piece of the train. It seems pretty common sense. Yeah, it really happened. And it was very, very painless for everybody involved and very safe.
Right.
Okay,
and I just want to make this point is that we have two of these appointees to the Nevada High-Speed Rail Authority who are both saying, we're not talking about safety enough on this, and a concern from both of them that came through in our interactions with them. And why no one is talking about that is now a concern to hopefully everyone listening to this.
Okay, I am a big train stan, much like President Joe Biden. I travel a lot for my other role
me too.
As an author.
Yeah.
And I take the train all up and down the East and West Coast. But I am concerned about the proposed ticket prices. So the Brightline founder and chairman, Wes Edens, he told the Los Angeles Times in an interview that round-trip tickets could cost over $400. Now, when I'm booking tickets on Amtrak, it's like $20 to $50, $120 if you want to take first class. That doesn't seem competitive with other passenger rails, and it doesn't even seem competitive with air travel. You all know you can get on Spirit Airlines. Is it comfortable? No. Is it super convenient? Absolutely not. Is it $25 round trip? Yes, it is. So, what? Is this really how much? Why would I pay that?
Well, it's sort of speculative right now, and we asked around about if that number was real. It may very well be, but there is a bunch of asterisks that are around it. Comparing it to air travel, they say isn't fair because air travel is actually longer than it seems because you have to go to the airport and wait in lines and all that stuff. Whereas with a train, you just show up on time, you hop on, and it's usually a much faster process. That's for sure my experiences with trains as well. And then also it goes to very specific areas and that there would be some, commuter traffic that would augment stuff. And depending on how well that went for people who wanted to get from, Rancho Cucamonga to Victorville or whatever, I don't even know. Whatever the segments might be aren't serviced by other transit options, and aren't even a viable option with planes and stuff. So they think that ultimately some people might want to work through that commute and that the pricing is adjustable. But you're not wrong, Sarah. If it's priced too high, all the great benefits of train travel that people have been waiting for a long time, high speed, fast transport from LA to Las Vegas, avoiding all that traffic, could really be hampered if it does turn out to be somewhat cost prohibitive. So I can't imagine they're not looking at that. But again, they don't have, by all accounts, they have not made public that they even have the financing in place and what that would look like. And
the train needs to be faster and cheaper than my car. That's the kind of bottom line for me to
there is that too, right?
rail,
With gas
right?
prices and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of calculus here.
It's supposed to be group transportation that is better for the environment and better for your pocketbook.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep your eye on to see how that is being adjusted. I can't imagine if there's not a lot of demand at a particular number that number wouldn't be driven down.
Dayvid, do you feel that the Brightline being built will affect sales at Eddie World? Or do you think there's a possible partnership where Eddie World takes over the snack stand in the Brightline?
I can't imagine that Eddie World corporate is not trembling in their boots that the very popular roadside stop for traffic commuters.
Maybe they can arrange for a rail stop there so I can get my banana chips.
Or maybe, there could be like those T-shirt guns and they just open up the windows on the train. And if you're lucky enough, it just lands in your lap. I don't know.
Well, AI is going to do that. That's not going to be human
Well, I
powered.
bet on these passenger trains, there's going to be the food car
Run by
or whatever.
Eddie World.
And I would imagine Eddie would want to get in on that
I hope so.
literal gravy train.
This is a partnership that I think could work.
That's funny.
Considering there's been a groundbreaking with no actual building plan on the horizon, should we just abandon all hope that the Brightline, that a train between Las Vegas and LA, the most logical thing possible, is just never going to happen?
Short answer, no, we cannot abandon it. And I wouldn't say that there's no plan in place. Obviously, you're not going to get, $6 billion in some manner of public financing if there's no plan in place. I mean, let's be real. It's just a lot of the specifics of it have not been fully fleshed out. And again, as we talk about the discussion of safety of a first-time high-speed rail, we don't want to talk about this years from now, where we're talking about a horrible accident. We want to do everything we can on the front end, obviously, to prevent that sort of thing from happening, or at least have that discussion and the type of assurances that would make people more comfortable. I just don't want to be a test case.
Well, Dayvid, I really appreciate how in-depth you've gone in this reporting, and I'm really interested to see what happens and if Brightline West happens.
Yeah, well, and I just hope that those who are boostering this project, Brightline itself, really take to heart that safety is important. Golly, it's important to the people who are appointed to the high-speed rail authority, and they still have lingering questions. So whether it's a matter of creating greater oversight or even just being more transparent about these safety issues and the engineering issues and all the other issues. I mean, hype is what we're all about here in Las Vegas, but sometimes we need to take a little step back. So We'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you, Dayvid.
Thanks, Sarah.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed this show, tell a friend, share the episode. You can also rate our show and leave us a review wherever you get your pods. It's really helpful. And also, you'll probably enjoy our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.